What's up, brothers and sisters and scholars? Let's get rocking and rolling with the coordinate plane. I know you are excited and you can't wait. So try to control yourself. You have your pen, your pencil, your graph paper. And the great thing about this, because you love it so much, you could keep playing this over and over and over. Rewind and playing it. And what's even better is when you get tired of hearing my voice, you could just hit the mute button. So how cool is that? Where when you come to school, you can't do that. Let's rock and roll. So we got the coordinate plane here. Remember, a coordinate plane is broke up into two axes, the x-axis and the y-axis. The y-axis being the vertical axis, the x-axis being the horizontal axis. What I recommend you do is anytime you draw the coordinate plane, you draw your two axes, always label your x and y. First of all, is I could take this board and turn it this way. I've just changed my axes, haven't I? And if you haven't labeled them, what's your teacher going to do? Mark you wrong? We don't want that. So label the axes. Also label positive and negative, the direction that you're going. Obviously, when we go up and to the right, we are positive. When we go to the left and down, we are negative. So as you can see, I labeled my axes. What I also did for you is I labeled the quadrants. We have 4 sections, number 1, 2, 3, and 4. What I also did in the quadrant for you is we put in the first quadrant, everything is positive. Your x and y coordinate are positive. When we go to the second quadrant and we count counterclockwise, I am negative, positive. And when I go to the third quadrant, x and y are both negative. And when I go to the fourth quadrant, positive and negative. What I also want you to do is when you label your ordered pairs, I want you to label them x and y. So when you look at the first problem that we're doing, where you have to plot the rectangle, they ask you to plot the vertices, the points, the corners. I want you to label x and y. X comes first and then y. Alphabetical order, ordered pair. Pretty cool, right? That way you don't get confused. And what you're going to do is you're now going to plot those points. So remember, positive x is to the right. A negative x value is to the left. And that's why we're going to label. So you can keep going back and forth and you can look at the coordinate plane to make sure you don't make any mistakes. We also need to know what a rectangle is. And the whiteboard is a rectangle. Your phone is a rectangle. Do you notice that the opposite sides are the same distance? Which is pretty cool. They're also parallel. So when you plot these 3 points and you go to find that 4th point, you can literally count on the graph paper. So make sure you're using graph paper. It's easier to count, make sure everything is lined up, and you're going to make sure that your opposite sides have the same length. The same length. Pretty cool, right? When they ask you about domain and range, think DR, Dominican Republic, alphabetical order. How cool is that? Your domain or your x values, your range or your y values. So you could even get in a habit if you want on the rectangle is when you go XY, you could start labeling DR. And if you notice for number 42, next to the letter X, I wrote domain. Next to the letter Y, I wrote range. Domain are your X values, range are your Y values. So we shouldn't get confused. Once again, it's alphabetical order. Pretty cool. You like that, right? Don't get confused between quadrants and an axis. You can almost think of this. Would you want Brother Mags in your house at your dinner table eating with you? Or would you rather Brother Mags sitting on your roof trying to eat dinner with you? So, when you're on the roof, you're not inside. You get it? Inside. So the quadrants, you are inside. On the axes, you're not inside the house. Pretty cool. You like that? All right. Now, when we count on the number line, we always start at 0. Think of a ruler. You start to begin at 0, and when you take your first step, that will become 1. When you do your number line, what I did here is I actually counted by 2. If I am going to count by 2, I have to write that down. I have to tell the teacher that I'm counting by 2s. If I'm counting by 1s, literally you don't even have to label your number line, but I recommend that you always do. So what I did is the big dashes I counted by 2s, and I put a little dash in there to know that that's by 1. So make sure you always number your number line. So in the next question, when they ask you where does M lie on what axis, remember you're on an axis. You're not in a quadrant. So if you're on an axis, you're either X or Y. So know the difference between your quadrants and your axes. Awesome. On the challenge, do you know what slope is? Wow, that's awesome. I'm glad everybody knows what slope is. Slope is rise over run. The change of y over the change of x. I'm not going to get too crazy with you, but I'm going to write a simple formula for you because we are graphing. Your rise over your run. So think about this. We rise, we're going to think vertical. It's a vertical change, and your run is a horizontal change. So to make it easy for you, I'm going to label the rise and the run for you. So that way, when we do rise over run, we are rising and then we are running. So your triangle, think of that, your triangle I'm at a point, I rise, and then I run to another point on that line. And what ends up happening, I create a triangle. Remember, we cannot count on a diagonal on a coordinate plane, but we can count vertically and horizontally. So that should help you with your challenge. I know you can't wait to get started. I'm sure most of you have been doing it already. And like I said, you could rewind this each and every time, as many times as you like. And when you get tired of hearing my voice, just shut it off or mute it. I love you. You're awesome, and have an amazing day.